Welcome to today's Explainer. Right off the bat, we're going to dive into a concept that might actually completely shift how you interact with the world. I mean, we live in this era where everyone is just constantly shouting to be heard, right? Reacting in a split second is treated like this huge badge of honor. But today, we're flipping the script. We are unpacking why holding our tongues, taking a breath, and choosing not to speak is actually the ultimate life strategy. Let's get right into it.
You know, society kind of tricks us into thinking that silence is just a passive weakness. Like, if you aren't speaking up, you're losing. But that is entirely backwards. Silence is definitely not an absence of thought. It's a highly active, incredibly powerful tool. And we're going to break down 9 specific, tactical situations where deploying silence helps you manage your internal emotions, de-escalate messy external conflicts, and really build deep trust with the people around you.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. First, the power of silence. Second, managing emotional extremes. Third, navigating conflict and provocation. Fourth, guarding information and respect. And finally, the ultimate wisdom.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Managing Emotional Extremes, specifically focusing on internal silence. Usually our absolutely biggest battles are the internal ones. And what's really fascinating here is the instruction to stay silent during 2 drastically contrasting emotional extremes. It's not just about hiding the negative stuff. It's about hitting the pause button during any extreme deviation from your normal, everyday baseline.
Let's look at the first big one, when you're angry. Remaining quiet when you are fuming acts as an absolutely crucial buffer. We all know that horrible feeling, right? Your blood pressure spikes, and the most cutting, razor-sharp words are just sitting right there on the tip of your tongue. But speaking out of anger almost guarantees you're going to say something you don't actually mean. Remaining silent stops us from lashing out and doing permanent, devastating damage to our relationships that we literally can't undo. You can always speak later, but man, you can never, ever unspeak angry words.
Now, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, we also need to stay silent when we're overwhelmingly happy. And I know that might feel a little counterintuitive, like, why hide our joy? But it's not really about hiding it. It's about your decision-making. Being silent when you're overjoyed is super important because it stops us from making these massive, wildly unrealistic promises in the heat of the moment. We've all been there. You get a promotion or close a huge deal, and suddenly you're offering to buy dinner for the entire restaurant. So staying silent when you're riding that high saves you from making commitments that your future baseline self just won't be able to keep.
So it really just boils down to this simple golden rule. Stay silent in these 2 situations, when angry and when happy. By forcing yourself to just hold your tongue during both of these extremes, you're actually giving your logical brain the crucial seconds it needs to catch up with your racing heart.
Moving on to Section 2, Navigating Conflict and Provocation, or what we can call external deflection.
If internal control was step 1, external deflection is what comes next. And just look at how fast a confrontation can blow up. Step 1, someone instigates. Step 2, they throw a direct insult. Step 3, discussion becomes totally useless. And step 4, that worst-case scenario where opening your mouth will literally cause an explosion. So let's look at exactly how silence acts as the perfect antidote to this whole chain reaction.
Let's break down why this matters at the very start of a conflict. When someone is instigating you or just outright insulting you, they usually have one very specific goal. They want your reaction. They want to drag you right down into the mud with them. But choosing silence in that exact moment, it's incredibly empowering. It completely starves them of the emotional reaction they're so desperately fishing for. When you say nothing, their insult just kind of hangs there awkwardly in the air, and you get to keep all your power.
As things progress, we hit that incredibly frustrating phase where discussion is just useless. Have you ever been in one of those arguments where you're just talking in circles? Where the other person is like 100% committed to misunderstanding you? Well, recognizing that and just staying silent saves you an immense amount of time and mental energy. Seriously, there's no trophy for winning a pointless argument that never had a productive end in sight anyway. Just let silence cut the loop. And then we reach full red alert mode. You absolutely have to stay silent when the situation could be worse if you speak. At the absolute peak of an escalating mess, when tensions are sky high, your ego might be screaming at you to get the last word in. Actually, scratch that. It's almost always screaming. But holding back your words right here is the ultimate defensive maneuver. It's pulling the emergency brake before a bad situation spirals into a total, unmitigated disaster.
That brings us to Section 3, Guarding Information and Respect, all about maintaining social harmony. In our day-to-day social lives, we constantly find ourselves at two completely opposite ends of the information spectrum. It's either a total lack of information, like when you simply don't know something, or a surplus of highly sensitive information, like when you hold someone's secret. And in both of these extreme cases, absolute silence is required.
First up, if you simply don't know the answer or you don't have the facts on a certain topic, choosing silence is a legitimate superpower. We live in a culture where everybody feels this intense pressure to have a hot take on literally every single issue. But admitting ignorance through your silence, that totally protects your personal credibility. And even more importantly, it stops the dangerous spread of misinformation. Honestly, it's a sign of immense intellectual security to just nod, listen, and remain quiet when you aren't fully informed. And then we have the flip side. If you know somebody's secret. Gossip is this cheap currency people use to buy temporary social status, but it bankrupts your character. If you possess sensitive, hidden knowledge about someone, keeping your mouth completely shut is the ultimate display of loyalty and trustworthiness. It's the bedrock of deep, meaningful relationships. When people know for a fact that their secrets are safe with you in silence, they will absolutely trust you with their lives.
Which brings us to a point that might sound super obvious, but is actually deeply profound. Stay silent when someone else is talking. I mean, how often do we listen just to formulate our next reply? Just waiting for our turn to speak. But staying truly, actively silent when someone else has the floor is the easiest and most powerful way to show fundamental respect. It tells that other person that they actually matter and that their words have real value to you.
Finally, we arrive at Section 4, the ultimate wisdom, bringing it all together.
When we take a step back and look across all three of these domains, emotional control, conflict de-escalation, and information management, a really crystal clear philosophy emerges. Restraint is never a sign of weakness. I mean, it takes absolutely zero effort to just react impulsively, but to hold your tongue, to pause, that takes profound self-control, deep emotional intelligence, and genuine strength.
And that leaves us with one final thought to wrap up today's explainer. Look, we are constantly surrounded by noise, by a million notifications, and by people basically begging for our immediate reactions. But now that you've seen the sheer strategic power of holding back, you've got a choice to make. In a world that constantly demands your reaction, will you choose the wisdom of silence? Think about it. Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, keep learning.